ask, Coolio, are you ready?
Big Rich Music.
I'm ready.
Welcome to another episode of Ways to Better Living. As always, this is your host Coolio, bringing you another topic of discussion for this episode, which is a continuation of the one that we've been doing, dealing with laws. And in this episode, this will be part 8, and we're going back to family law, which we already discussed the first part, which was divorce, and now we're going to discuss custody, which is another one that is common within the family, and as to who takes care of the children on a permanent or how. As I keep going, you will understand and get an idea of how it is. So with dealing with this, as always, before I get into it, just as a quick update, tomorrow might be my last episode for a while. I'm not sure how long it will be. If I do not come back on Monday, then you know that it will be a while before I will do another episode, and I cannot give you time. And all this due to, as I always mention, my personal situation, which I will not discuss here. So I'm giving you the update now, so you know that if you do not hear me hear new episode from Monday on, then you know that something in my personal that affects me to be able to do this. So that's just a quick update I'll give, and I will continue now with the discussion, so we can be able to finish this part as we keep going. So now, what does the law entail about having to deal with custody battle, which most people are familiar with, some not so as in a personal, but I've heard about it, and so it's something that is out there. So now, let's go deep dive into it. So first thing, we know usually divorce can get into a custody battle, and also if you never married even, that can also, depending on what outcome to situations where it would derive to custody battle as to. So for the ones who are married, living together with children, and going through separation and divorce, and custody kicks in place as to who the children will spend the most time with, and also what's not and what not. So, and if in that settings, usually, not in all cases, but in usual cases, what they look for to see where the children, they will say, the best fit is according to the time that you've been together, the person who's been in the children's life the most, that can lead to it being to that person's favor. And secondly, to see who's the most responsible, and that is where they usually tend to focus most times, though not always, but most times, who is most responsible as to taking care of the children, either full like usually it's full time, unless otherwise they will go part-time basis where it's half and half, but usually it's full time, and the other party got visitation rights where the children go visit for and back and forth. So with dealing with that, these are the two main areas they look for, that the courts will focus their attention the most as to who is the most fit parents out of the mom or the dad to take care of the children full time, or for the children to spend more of their time with than the other party. And also, in dealing with that situation, and we also have the aspect of finance, who is much more capable of, if you're one of you is, which usually it's made in this, they usually go for the males, but it also can go in favor for either way, but usually go in favor for the females and the males financial support. Why they do that? Because it's in most families the males tend to be the one just providing the financial, so which means they're absent in the children's life the most, and in these cases they tend to choose the female to be the sole proprietor as to taking care of the children full time, because they notice the father might still not want to consider the children as to being there in the physical, but rather their job, which tendency they also can look as ways of what derive to the divorce or the separation or divorce that they're going through.
The things that you don't.
So with this said, now,
Listen carefully. So
as I mentioned, it can go either way, but for the most part, the female tend to have custody of the children and custody battle. And even if you're not married, you hear they have the thing as common law in this part of the world, where if you're living together without having that certificate, they consider you're married without the certificate, so they call it common law, meaning everything is, you are just like married couple minus the paper. So, and usually that kicks in after 3 months of living with the person. So in that case, if you guys have children and start having issue where you gotta go to family court, these are also the things that they will pretty much put in place as to who should have the children.
fix yourself.
And in that case, majority of the time, it goes to the female. Also, another thing that they do look for as to giving custody is something that it doesn't always go in favor for the male, but they also look at that. If any party does drugs, that, well, when I mention drugs, you guys already should know what the drugs that, although the one I will not consider drugs, but they still put it down as drugs to them. And with this, they tend to bring up tension usually, especially if that one party that does that and cannot still, they use that against them. They tend to bring friction between the partners, though they've already been fighting, but it will bring more tension between them. So now, with having all this battle, they also look at situation as to drugs and criminal background as to if you want that being caught in several acts of criminality, like as to what we've been discussing in as to criminal law, which they can also use against you, depending. And this part of, mostly they tend to look at the male side more than the female, because males are the ones that they considered as to be the ones that usually into so many different things, and once in a while your people you associate yourself with that can be as an influence to you, as to peer pressure and all that, can affect that decision also by the judge. Not in all cases, but some cases it does affect that as well. So which means the company you around can affect the custody battle. So these are the mainly the things that they look for, and as we discuss, also things that they look where I mentioned on the last episode of the divorce, of the abuse to your children, which they also look at in all those aspects, so which can also influence in who got the children. So these are the things about family court when it comes to custody battle, and those who've been through it understand it. Those who've going through it can definitely understand it. But if you've never been through it and you're looking to go through it, well, these are the things that you sort of expect. So with that said, this will be where I will end this episode, as to leaving you with the understanding of where custody battle, of how the law look at who the children will be better off with than, and it's not always tendency that the female are the ones getting them, but majority of the time, as to in I would say 8 out of 10 cases, tend to go to the female for full time. And sometimes you got that split custody, which is not common, but it does happen. And for the male to have full custody, well, that I would say it's a rare cases. It does happen, but it's rare. It's not one that's really common, but it does happen as well. So these are how the situation is with custody battle. And so with that said, as always, this is your host Coolio, bringing you the end of this topic of discussion, and hope you all have a wonderful time, and God bless.
Everyone keep on crying to each other that there's no love at all. Everyone looking for someone to show the things that makes life better. And I say the only thing that will make it better is to have compassion, understanding, and the love that comes with great care, so that you will show respect for everyone, as that's what I want. So next time you think of asking me, what do I want? Remember that what I want is for you to love each other in the manner of love and care for each other, as to show compassion, patience, and respect.